Hey, and welcome to 96Indie, where the goal is to provide DIY tips for music makers and content creators. So today we're adding the newest addition to the studio setup. This is the Radial LX-2 line level splitter. So essentially what I want is a dual interface setup. So I want to be able to use my Audient iD4 when I need to easily, and my Apollo when I want to easily. Not only that, but I want it to always be associated with this right here. The TLM-103 microphone connected to the ISA preamp into the compressor. So essentially, the idea when I install this LX2 is that all I have to do to switch between the Audient iD4 and the Apollo with that same microphone going through the same chain is just switch the cable for the interface. So basically right now the Audient iD4 is connected with this cable right here, and then I kind of have the Apollo cable waiting in the wing right there. So essentially if I want to use the iD4, boom, plug it in, and then my TLM-103 going through that chain will be the microphone that I'm using. If I want to use the Apollo, then I just have to attach the Apollo cable instead. And same mic, same chain. So that's the goal, and that's why I got this line level splitter. And we're gonna install that right now. All right, so here we go. Now we have it unboxed. Just to take a quick tour of the unit. So basically I'm gonna come out of the preamp into the line level input. Over here we also have a trim, which I'm not necessarily planning on using. I just want to take the level out of the preamp as it is and split it off to both interfaces, to the input of both interfaces. But the trim option is there for anybody interested in using this and interested in that feature. And you could just turn it on or off. So otherwise it'll be the line level output of the mic preamp coming into the input of this box. And then essentially, if we flip it around, we have dual outputs via XLR. And then there's also a ground lift switch for each of those as well, in case that comes in handy. So yeah, basically I'm going XLR into the box, and then I'm coming out XLR with a female plug XLR, but the other side of the cable is going to be 1/4 inch TRS. That way I can bypass the preamp of the Apollo as well as the Audient iD4. So with that said, let's go ahead and get it connected. I actually only have one of the XLR, the 1/4 inch cables right now. So I'm going to connect the iD4 today. And then I have the other cable ordered, just waiting for it to come in and ship in to add that and attach that to the Apollo. All right, so here we are on the back side of the setup. A lot of this stuff is already set up because the Apollo is actually connected to the TLM-103 in that chain as it stands. So I really only need to swap out the output cable of the preamp right now. So that's this right here. Weave it through here. And basically this is the back of the Apollo. So I need to take the other end of that cable. So I'll stop the video real quick because it looks like I'll need 2 hands. All right, yeah, step complete. I did need 2 hands to get that input out of the Apollo. But here we go. Female XLR to 1/4 inch TRS is gonna now connect to the iD4 in this chain. Cool, so with all that said, I need to now come out of the output of the preamp with a straight up XLR cable. So this is like 5 or 6 feet max, and I'm just gonna make those connections right now. So I got my female end, and I'm gonna pretty much attach it to the output of the main output of the ISA preamp. Now, I'm just gonna use 2 hands to make sure that's nested all the way in there and that I get the click that I need. But pretty much main output with this short XLR cable is coming out of the preamp. Great, so now that I have the line level signal coming out of the preamp, that's where the LX2 comes in. So now I'm going to go into the input with my other end of that short XLR cable, which I have right here. Get that connected up. Get the click that I want out of it. And then I'm going to give it a spin just so the cable is doing what I want it to do. Cool, so other than that, I'm honestly just going to nest this in the cable management of my desk. So the view is probably going to be a little bit weird because it's kind of like dark back in this area. But anyway, I'm going to nest the LX2 back here. And essentially I'm going to come out of one of the outputs into the ID4. So now this is that female XLR end. That's going to go into the output of one of these, or one of the outputs of the splitter. So I'm just going to try to make a clean path to the box. As I've been doing so far, I'll stop recording so I can get that to fully click in. Alright, so I moved the box more to the middle of the desk. So now I have XLR male into it, XLR female out of it with that 1/4 inch cable. Here's the 1/4 inch end. I'm going to feed it through the desk to where the Audient iD4 is at. So I'm going to have to unscrew the rack cover. Alright, so now I'm just going to undo the rack cover so that I can reach the Audient iD4 with that last connector. So get it a little bit loose. A little bit loose and continue the process until this is open. Alright, and here we are. The rack cover is open. There goes my TRS end. That's going to plug into the input of the ID4. We're exposed back here, and we can see that the LX2 is down there hiding out. So now all there is to do is make this last connection with this cable right here. So that's going to go into the input of the Audient iD4, and there we have it. Now we're clicked into the Audient iD4. So all the connections have been made that I can make today. Like I said, I need one more cable like this one right here so that I can take the other output of the LX2 and connect to the input of the Apollo. So that'll like truly complete the dual setup. All right, cool. Now we're back to normal and the rack cover's back on and we still have our 1/4 inch cable connected. So now it is a matter of testing it out with the TLM103 through that signal chain. All right, so here we go on the last step of checking it out. So basically I would need to turn on this and then turn on that. Just turn on both of those. And now basically the next step would be to hit my phantom power for the TLM103. Got it, good, cool. So other than that, pretty much I keep this knob here, usually always. But my main kind of spoken dialogue vocal setting is around here. Check, check, hi, hello, hi. Check, check, hi, hello, hi. So if all's well and the LX2 isn't really altering the signal, only splitting the signal, then I should be getting a similar level to what I usually get. And so far, so good. Looks pretty good. All right, so basically hits the preamp and then I hit the insert to check my compression. And then from here, if I do a little bit of checking, hi, hello, hi, check, check, hi, hello, hi, mic check, 1, 2, then I typically get around 3 dB of compression, which seems to be the case here. If I start to get loud anyway, hi, check, check, hi, hello, hi. There we go, something like that. Cool, so everything looks normal here. And then I'm also doing a screen record of the ID4 software. So I'm curious as to what that looks like. So we'll pan over to there, or transition over to there. So hi, hello, hi. And I should be hitting like -9 when I do something like that. Hi, hello, hi. At the max. Hi, hello, hi. Mic check. Hi, hello, hi. Hey, hi, hello, hi. Check, check. Hi. Hi, hello, hi. Cool. So yeah, more or less. So with all that said, the whole reasoning behind this setup is because I do use both interfaces. So the Apollo, it's great. Obviously, it has a lot of great functionality, plugins that you can insert into the signal chain, all that type of stuff. So the Apollo is, in fact, awesome. However, I do have and use a Windows computer. So essentially, I've noticed that the Apollo is not, great in every application. Like, if I'm using Pro Tools and I'm doing a professional recording, great, fine. But I've noticed some difficulty with using the Apollo with, let's say, like Microsoft Teams, or if I'm on a Zoom call with somebody, or for work, I was using this platform called Big Blue Button, which is kind of like Teams, kind of like Zoom. So I tried to test out the Apollo on that, did not work whatsoever. Sounded all crunchy, all weird. And I've noticed that, it's not only there, it's like when I use the Apollo with applications other than, let's say, like Studio One or Pro Tools, whether it be OBS, I feel like, the Apollo is more difficult with on Windows. And like I mentioned, I tried it out on Big Blue Button and it was just not working at all. And I needed to use my computer for work and to use Big Blue Button for work. So that's where the Audient iD4 came in as a backup interface. But the problem with that was that, if I wanted to use the same microphone that's already connected to my desk, then I would have had to pretty much swap out the cable, that's connected to the Apollo and connected to the Audient iD4 instead, and go behind my desk and just go through all this hassle, right? So the LX2 makes it so that switching between these interfaces isn't a hassle. So if I want to use the Apollo, great. If I want to use the iD4 and I need to be like doing a call on Teams, or just using any other program where the Apollo doesn't really agree with the program and put out high quality audio like it's supposed to do, then I could just swap out to the iD4 because that's my backup interface. And it's like rock solid reliable. Like I could use that in Pro Tools. I could use that in Studio One. I could use it in Teams. I could use it on Big Blue Button. I could use it on Zoom. And I know it's going to work consistently across all those platforms. And that's why the iD4 is still in the mix. So if I want to do a super professional, like Pro Tools session, Studio One session recording, then I can use the Apollo. If I just need to do stuff where like I'm having a meeting, Microsoft Teams or anything like that, then I know the iD4 is going to be rock solid for that. And not only that, but I don't have to switch mics. I don't have to switch cables. It's still going through my ISA1 preamp. It's still going through my 3A compressor. And pretty much the only thing that I change is the USB-C cable for the Audient iD4. I swapped that out for the Thunderbolt cable that's already right next to my laptop. So super convenient, super easy to swap between the two. And the LX2 is kind of like the key to making that easy switch happen. And is the whole reason why I wanted the LX2 in the first place. Okay, so before leaving off, I did get that cable in the mail, the last cable. And here's some footage of me getting that. And then, of course, taking it and connecting it to the LX2, and from the LX2 to the Apollo. And then last but not least, here we are in the Apollo software as I do this voiceover. And we can see that I am getting signal here. So like I said, same chain, same mic, into the same preamp, into the same compressor, and then through the LX2 also to the Apollo. And we're hearing the results of that right now. So yeah, all in all, thank you for tuning in as always. I hope that offers up some insight as to what the LX2 might be useful for, and appreciate y'all. Till next time, once again, I'm Joe R. This is NINESIXINDIE. Later.